So what's behind the name Warped Legacy?
Welcome to Warped Legacy.
There's actually quite a lot of thought that went into this name. And in my opinion, some pretty important meaning behind it. Now, when I first started to get into metalworking at all, it was because of Drew Cross. And it was mostly because at the time, Drew had a minor obsession with Forged in Fire. And he passed that minor obsession on to me. Now, I know that's a similar story to how a lot of people have gotten into blacksmithing recently. It was because of things like Forged in Fire, or Alex Steele getting big, or a friend talking about Forged in Fire and getting you connected. So, we both wanted to get into this, we both wanted to make knives, so I hit research hard. I cannot count all of the videos I watched about hardening steel. Carbon content, other alloys, annealing. I learned a lot about what I wanted to do. But that's all I was doing with that, was finding information on it and looking at that information. I wasn't actually doing anything. I got tired of learning about blacksmithing and making knives, and I just wanted to do something. So I did. While all this was going on, I met a metal artist, and he invited me to his shop and fired up his forge and let me play for a little bit. That's where I made this thing, and after I made this thing, I was hooked. Then I went to the scrapyard, asked if they had any big chunks of steel I could use as an anvil. They let me walk around, pick out a couple pieces, and then they went, "Well, we don't usually sell stuff. There's not much there. Don't worry about it. Just take it." All right. So I got this chunk of steel. I have no idea what it is. About 1.5 inches thick, about 1.5 feet long, and about 6 inches wide. And that was my anvil. Took that thing, put it on a couple sawhorses, put some nails around it to hold it in place. Then went and got my grandpa's old brake drum forge. Actually, I don't know if my grandpa made it or if my great-grandpa made it. I know my grandpa used it because Dad's told me stories about Dad using this forge on the farm. So then Drew starts bringing some of his grandpa's tools over, and we start going, we should probably come up with a name for this. So we started brainstorming, trying to figure things out. We knew we wanted something that had some depth to it, something that had some meaning, something that was kind of cool to say. And that's when the word legacy popped into our head. Because most of the tools we were using came from our grandfathers or our great-grandfathers. We threw in a bunch of different combinations of other stuff, of words that have similar meaning to legacy, and ended up with warped legacy. Because when you're blacksmithing, you're warping metal in a way. So it had that connection in there, but the bigger meaning was that while we were using our grandparents' tools, we weren't using them for what our grandparents used them for. My grandpa had a farm, a tiling company. He used the forge to fix things that he broke and make things that he needed. And I don't remember if my dad or my grandma told me this, but one of them told me that Grandpa was the kind of guy that if he needed a bucket for his tractor, he wouldn't go buy a bucket. He'd go buy the metal to make himself a bucket. And I do that type of stuff all the time. But we weren't using any of the tools for what our grandparents used them for. We were connecting into their legacy by using the tools that they used, but we were warping it and using the tools to define our own legacy. And then Drew got a different job that took up a ton more of his time, and Warped Legacy kind of became my thing. So that is actually where I get a ton of the things that I say. Use the tools you have. Just get out there and start. If I would have just sat and learned and learned and learned and learned and never done, I never would have done this. Which means I never would have done this. And I never would have started the YouTube channel, which means I never would have done this. Which means I wouldn't be connected with all of you guys. So that's where a lot of this comes from. Use the tools you have available to do whatever you can and grow from there. Take what you have and turn it into your own thing. Don't sit and let time just flow by. Grab it and define your future. So that's what Warped Legacy is. I'm connecting to my grandfather's legacy by using his tools. And I'm warping that and turning it to my own legacy by respecting those tools and using them to make my own thing. And I think you should do the same. Not with my grandparents' tools. Not the exact same thing. Use what you have, not what I have. thank you for visiting Warped Legacy. If you like this video, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. And if you haven't done it yet, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications. And if you like what we're doing here at Warped Legacy, head on over to our Patreon page and show us some support there. Till next time, I'm Twan. Go define your legacy.